Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Positive Traction with Coach Henry. And today I have a great guest. I can't wait to talk about his book, talk about a lot of the successes. So, without any further ado, who are you?
Well, Coach, it's an honor to be on. I'm Thom Mayer. I'm the medical director for the NFL Players Association, among other things, and really looking forward to talking with you, sharing some insights and learning from you. So it's been a great ride for me, and I'm happy to share any minor thoughts that might be of help to you or to you, more importantly, to your listeners.
Absolutely, Doc. Well, thank you, and I really appreciate your success. I couldn't. I don't have enough paper for all the great things that you've accomplished, but I do want to give you a sincere compliment, and that is this: is that you take the time. I mean, you've been on The View, you've been on so many things, but you take the time to be on a podcast with, let's just call me an up and comer, someone who has a heart to just bless people, and that is my heart, Doc. Our slogan is "Be blessed and bless others," right? And what good is everything you have if people don't continue your work, especially while you're alive? And I love that you're healthy, you're here, you're sharing your good work. So I can't wait for our viewers to get to know you a little bit more, some of your passion, and so I appreciate that truly. Thank you.
Great.
So um, that being said, let's get right into it. Your current book. I love the title of it. The title itself is great. So, can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you from all the books and all the things that you've done? What was the trigger this for this particular title and for this type of book? Because I enjoy it, and yeah, please.
So the title for your viewers is "Leadership is Worthless, but Leading is Priceless." What
Yeah.
I learned from 9/11, the NFL, and Ukraine, and what led me to that was for reasons that we'll get into, I'm sure. I've been privileged to lead from the front in times of crisis, some of the most visible crises over the course of our last 20, 25 years. Starting on September 11th, 2001, when I was a command physician at the Pentagon. And what I wanted to try to do is reflect on some of the lessons that are not just non-intuitive, but contrarian, like the title. And what I mean by
Yeah.
that is leadership is worthless because it's just what you say, and anybody can say anything.
Yeah.
But leading is priceless because it's what you do all day,
Amen.
every day.
Yes,
Every
sir.
person, not just people
Yeah.
with titles, but every single mom, every waitress, every restaurant owner, every chef, every emergency physician, sports
Yeah.
medicine physician. So that idea is then followed in different chapters, as you know, by other contrarian ideas that just help us understand that the answers are not above us in an
Mhm.
organization or in a family or in life. They're within and among us. That ability to understand that, I think, is critical.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that share, Doc. And I agree with you. Look, for me personally, I believe in actions, right? Because, like you said, a lot of people, especially in today, with anybody can get on the phone, do a TikTok, do an Instagram, whatever, and people don't even fact check them or take any time to find out more about them. But when you are leading by your life example, and I love what you said that it's a waitress, it's every single one of us has to own our life and what that means to it, and we can either take a victim mentality or a victorious mentality, even in the worst of times. So, can you tell me, for those to give them a little visual, um, maybe let's switch it to now the NFL association. What does that mean for someone who is not familiar with that? Like, what is that a day in the life of Doc mean with the Players Association part of it?
Well, I became the medical director on August 1st, 2001. 2001 was a busy year for me. Corey
Yeah.
Stringer, a tackle for the Vikings, died of heat stroke. Inconceivably
Oh,
that a player would die of heat stroke, particularly that even that 25 years ago, 24 years ago.
yeah.
And I got a call from Gene Upshaw, uh, Hall of Fame left guard, one of the best football players in history, but also the executive director of the NFL Players Association, the union, saying,
Yeah.
"Doc, you got to step up. You got to become our medical director." And he didn't do that because he sifted through a bunch of resumes, because it was literally minutes from the time that he knew that Corey had died. He did it because he trusted me, and he trusted me because we were best friends.
Mm.
His youngest and my youngest were at that time best friends, and still are friends. And so my point is, I say to people all the time, don't build resumes, build relationships.
Oh, I love that,
Because,
Doc. Sorry,
yeah,
Doc. I'm going to quote that. I love that because you and I'm humbly making a note of our similarities in that part. I love that is build relationships. As you get to know me, Doc, and I hope to get to meet you in person sooner than later. But building relationship has been my life's work. So sorry to interrupt you there, but that is beautiful. Please continue. I
yeah.
love
I
that
mean,
quote.
we taught our kids, if wasn't coaching their teams, and I only coached them when they asked me to, I always made sure and Maureen, my beautiful and brilliant wife, made sure that when they came off the practice field, when they came off after a game, they went over to the coach and shook their hand and said, "Thank you. Thank you for taking the time
Yeah,
to help us learn." And
yeah,
that sense of generosity of relationships, of interacting. Philo of Alexandria is purported to have said, "Be kind, because everyone's fighting a great battle,"
hmm,
and they are. And so it becomes relationships. I had an interview yesterday from a magazine that they were kind of shaking their heads and saying, "Wow, that's a lot different than life seems to be right now," which is why I wrote the book. It's a contrarian idea.
yeah,
Don't worry about transactional things in terms of resumes. I mean, whenever I can't sleep, I get a bunch of resumes out and start reading them, and it puts me to sleep because it doesn't tell me who that person is.
right,
That's what I want to know. Who
yeah,
are you? Why would I and my team want to work with you?
yeah,
Now, when it comes to your question, what's it like as in my job? I represent 2,500 active players, their wives, their kids, their families, particularly when you go through something like COVID. But broadly, we're worried about whole family, whole life, whole player, and being able to help them any way they possibly can. Obviously the NFL is concerned about the interest of the billionaire owners, and that's not good or bad. That's just a fact. So,
yeah, yeah.
I'm my perspective, the lens through which I'm viewing everything that I do in that job, is to try to represent the needs, the interest of those player patients, because to us, they're always player patients. There's
Yeah.
2,500 active players. Injury rate in the NFL every year is 7,000, half of
Wow.
which are lost time injuries. So the injury rate for us, for our men, is 100%.
Yeah.
And then how do we help hold the clubs, we call them clubs, not teams, accountable for providing the health and safety needs that they have? So
Yeah.
that's a way of looking at it. It's collaborative, it's collegial, but it's a slightly different viewpoint. And in my relationship, you could check this with the team physicians and trainers, is actually superb. Because we have the best interests of the player in mind. They do, and we do as well.
I love that. Now, on a lot logistics, you are for our viewers. Where are you based out of yourself? What is your home?
Well, we live in Wilson, Wyoming,
Okay.
outside of Jackson, Wyoming. The Players Association is based in Washington, D.C., and that's where we raised our kids. Hence, that's why I
Ah,
knew Gene as well as I did. But,
nice.
people ask me, what's your office? And my answer is United Airlines seat 3C, I think. We're always on the go somewhere.
Well, my seat today, because I traveled today, is 3B. So I'm with you.
Good. Well, I'm left-handed, so I'm on the other side of the aisle.
Well, typically I am left-handed, and I sit on that aisle as well. But I last minute flight, so
There
we're
you go.
similar on that. That's great, Doc. Well. Well, good. I thank you for giving the viewers, both because the podcast and people that watch it, a little perspective of just a couple of the things going on with you. Now, to change kind of the arena of that, I wanted to make a note of what inspires you to be so proactive. And you alluded to it, and obviously when 9/11 and all that, but right before that, the who you are as a person triggered in the what happened. And what do you think you attribute that to? What is the deep down why that helps you be a spokesperson with a very good voice for the NFL Players Association? The things that you've done, the Ukraine. What do you attribute your personal why?
Well, as Nietzsche said, he who has a strong enough why can bear almost any how. Good wisdom.
Mm,
When our
yeah.
boys were younger, I used to take them to school every day that I was in town. And every day that I dropped them off, I said precisely the same thing to them, which is one more step in the journey of discovering where your deep joy intersects the world's deep needs.
Ooh, Doc,
I
you
swear
got
I
some.
said this to them, but they
I
prefer
believe
to
you. They
take,
got yeah.
yeah, they prefer to take the bus. Trust me, they don't want to hear that from dad. That's for sure. But
They
but
never
you
want to
have
hear.
to
Yeah.
start with your deep joy, your why, your true north, your
Yes.
raison d'être, however you want to describe it. It has to start with your deep joy because the world's deep needs are infinite. They're unfathomable. There's no bottom to that well. And so focusing on your deep joy, I think is absolutely critical because it helps you understand, should I do this or that? Should I do one, two, or three? And then when you reattach yourself to your deep joy, you begin to understand, okay, it's obvious what I should do. This is where it
Yeah.
lies. So
Yeah.
for me, and people, I often show a picture when I speak because I actually give a fair number of speeches. Show a picture of a young a woman jumping for joy. She's in a white coat, so she's a nurse or a doctor. You can't tell intentionally. Uh, and I ask people, is that you going into work or going home? It's a legitimate question. Shouldn't you feel that way going into work, not just going home from work? And I
Right.
think what a leader does, the boss, in the book I capitalize it, not affectionately. The boss is someone who thinks he's the most important person in the room.
Hmm.
The leader is someone who knows deep within them that their job is to make everyone else in that room feel that they're the most important person in the
Yeah.
room.
Yeah.
And when you begin to look at it that way, your why becomes clearer. It becomes the deep joy. My deep joy is helping other people identify and fully express their deep joy. Not to give them a deep joy, but to uncover it, to discover it, because it's in there.
Yeah.
And some
Yeah.
people say, well, I haven't gotten there yet. And the answer is, look, just, every day, continue to think about it. Every day, say, at the end of the day, three good things. What three good things happened today, and what was my role in those three things?
I
Well,
love
that's going to
that.
help you figure out your deep joy.
Absolutely, Doc. Well, beautiful shares, and I appreciate you just being who you are. Um, can you tell me a fun story? Any player that you don't have to use the name if you don't want to. Is something that obviously you do some good work. You truly do, and everything I've written, and I can't wait to get a copy and fully read your book. I only got the cliff notes, but I can't wait to see the whole thing. And is there a fun story in the NFL? A player that makes you go something that is one of the extra perks of your job that you can go, you know what, that guy, anything that you're willing to share.
Oh, sure. There's thousands of them because our players are so educated with regard to their health and safety. And you think about it, they're involved in a cycle of performance,
Yeah.
rest, and recovery. Performance, rest, and recovery. Well, so are we, no matter what we do. Whether in healthcare, in my case, or in your case, sharing wisdom with others on how to, figure out life and how to live it. So they're very intelligent about that, number one. Number two, they're among the most gracious and grateful people I've ever met. And there's just so many times that a player will text me or call me and say, "Hey doc, I appreciate you. You really helped me understand what was important. And keep my focus on that." One guy, at one time, I had two players, both defensive backs, DBs, and both had concussions and were in the concussion protocol. One of them is in his second year, and I say, as I always say to every patient, what what's important to you, what matters to you, not what's the matter with you, but what matters to you.
Right.
Hey doc, I want to get back in there. I'm okay. I don't think I should have been in the protocol in the first place. Second player is an 8-year player, and I ask him the same question: what matters to you? Doc, I got 3 girls, and this is my 5th concussion. I want to make sure that I'm good to go before I go back in. Same injury, but two completely different what matters to you.
Yeah.
And both of them later meaning a week later, called or texted me and said, "Hey, appreciate it, doc. You know what, you in one case kept me out until I was ready to go. In the other case, you helped me understand, these are the scientific tests that will tell me if I'm ready to go." So it's just a joy working with these guys. They're just the best.
Well, Doc, I love. There's two things that I think that stand out to me in this, even this last share. Is one, I feel that look in the culture and the society that we live today, it's not all bad. There's so many great things, but the beautiful thing about the wisdom that you're sharing is you're able to bring in a lot of years of wisdom, and you've had the ability, even though your personal boys don't want to always hear it, but they know that dad has something good in there, and I have a couple kids myself, so I understand. But I love how you shared that perspective of the two players, right? Because you really, I feel you have a gift with how to deliver something. It's the truth, but you package it in a way where the person that needs to hear it is going to receive it. And I believe that's a gift that you have because a lot of, the famous expression, bedside manners. And, being a doctor, sometimes, with all due respect, some doctors, they're gifted. They just don't deliver things with a lot of empathy often. And it's understandable. But for you and what you do on a daily basis, going now switching back to 9/11 to the Ukraine, and we'll talk about that in a moment. I love how you're able to relate and have it be relatable. You use relationships, but the other R I would use for you is you're relatable, you're approachable. You're aware of your accomplishments, but you're using them for good. And that's a beautiful testimony to your work. So I want to
Yeah,
commend you.
I mean, you're wise in saying gently and kindly, and I appreciate that. That there's some docs out there that we all talk about all the A's, their ability. Oh my God, he's so smart, or he does best surgeries and all those kinds of things.
Mhm.
I mean, I get that, but along the way, somebody who's just a great technician, great surgeon, but doesn't have, as you said, bedside manner. I'd call it affable in addition um, to aptitude itself.
Yeah,
It is we failed that person if we haven't taught them. Hey, you just described a surgical procedure, and if you ask that patient, what did I just say? They don't have a clue. Whereas the same doctor can, if trained appropriately in communication skills, can be able to do that by active listening and all. I'll give you a simple example. A player called me and had a knee surgery, and he wanted to go back, but he was only 6 months through his rehabilitation. Well, the current science on that particular repair is the team physicians who are the ones who are going to make the decision. I'm not going to make the decision. The
right.
team physicians are going to make the decision on whether he can go back is 9 months, not 6 months, because all the studies have shown, that's a little too early. And so I had to give him news he didn't want to hear.
Right.
He wanted to hear, "Hey, you're good to go." I'll call the team doc and tell him, "Hey, solid, we're good. Let's go." Got the handshake and all that. So I had to break the news to say, "Look, This is what the science says. Let them know, hey, this is where I am in my rehab. I'm going through this thing, but I always say this, to players, to anyone, tell them you'll never regret having me on this club. You will
Right.
always be happy. I'm a great team member. You know
Yeah.
what? Give me the 3 months to get better. And sure enough, about 3 months and 20 seconds later, I get this phone call. Doc, I just signed. I'm good to go. So it's not always good news. It's how you deliver the news.
Well, and that's why I wanted to commend you, Doc, because I feel that what you're doing with your platform is important work. Because, what good are we on this journey of life if we don't take a moment to truly appreciate what we have? Sometimes it could always be better, and sometimes it could always be worse. A lot of times at
Sure.
the same time. But if we don't take the time, just like for me, I'm enjoying my journey. I've had some lows and some highs like anybody else, but if I don't share them, and that's the motivation for me with this podcast and my show is I've had a chance already in a short time to meet some wonderful people like yourself that have much bigger platforms, but take the time to share because what good is the message if people aren't going to ultimately walk away going, you know what, meeting that doc, I took something good, man. I needed to hear that. Even if they heard it 1,000 times, it's the one that counts. Like you said, he didn't want to hear the news, but he knew it was the right news. He had enough respect. And 3 months and 20 seconds later, he was good to go. And you felt good saying, look, I'd rather put you back out there giving your 100% than 95% and a potential. So,
Yeah, it's as Gandhi said, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. To your point that there's a lot of and I think I've heard a lot of people. We had good friends over for dinner last night here in Wyoming, and they all said to a person, and the book was not the reason for the dinner. These are just great friends from whom we've learned a tremendous amount. But they said two things that made me feel good. One, hey doc, this sounds like you. I read this, it sounds like you talking. So the
yeah.
genuineness comes through. And two is, hey doc, on every page you're trying to help somebody with something.
Hmm. Yeah.
Help them from a mistake that you've made or show them, how in the commonplace. I think, for example, that one of the most toxic, demeaning, demoralizing things you can ever say to someone is to call them a future leader.
Mm.
And a lot of people go, wait a minute, isn't that a compliment? No, we're all leaders. A future leader makes it sound like, well, I'm a leader, but you're not. I'm at
Right.
this lofty place, but you're
Yeah.
not. Maybe
Yeah.
someday you'll rise. Now, developing, improving leader, all those kinds of things, love it, love it, love it. Our guys in the NFL spend 3 to 5 times more time in the film room than they do on the practice field, the weight room,
Hmm.
or playing the game of football because they're analyzing how they can get better. And I'm all
Yeah.
good with that. But this future leader stuff, I just don't agree with it because future leader says someday you'll be a leader. Horse hockey.
Yeah.
Today you are a leader.
Yeah.
I want people when they swing their legs out of bed and hit the ground to say, today I will lead. How will I lead?
Yeah.
What is my mission, vision, and values? My deep joy, my way, the why. That's going to say these are the ways I'm going to do it. And you know, uh, our guys in the fourth quarter. That's when you really want to know the disciplines of playing football or
Yeah.
track. I learned that from Jackie Joyner Kersey, the great heptathlete. It's discipline when you get most tired. So when that person, whoever they are, says, I will lead today, how do they lead in the fourth quarter? When it's hard, when you're behind, when you're
Yeah.
exhausted, when you can barely hold your head up. And that's when your integrity shines through. The idea that that's somewhere in the future, I think, is just a massive mistake and a disservice to all of us.
No, and I agree with you, Doc. I agree on your perspective. I really do, and I think in the short time you've gotten to know me, I'm not here to just say yes unless I really believe that yes to
Sure.
be true. And I believe it's the same thing that people would say. Oh man, you have a lot of great potential. I think our potential is lived every day. It's how we apply it to life. right? And like you said, we're always going to make improvements. I'm going to take something from your book and go, okay, I heard that, man, but it stuck today. And I even, like I said, I love your title. I love it's a contradiction, like you said, because it makes you go, whoa, let me read that again. But it is, it's how we live. It's how your kids are watching. They're watching you. It doesn't mean you don't make mistakes. It doesn't mean that you're perfect. No, it means you're quick to admit your mistakes. It's quick to admit that you're not perfect. It's quick to admit that you have vulnerability. Even today, my business partner and I, in my business, he shared something very vulnerable to me. And I said, first, I said, hey, thank you. Because true vulnerability is
Sure.
true strength to me, right? Because you're saying that you're trusting someone with some of your moments that are weak, but in that weakness you grow strong. So I love that philosophy, Doc, and I think it's great on that.
Yeah,
Um,
the vulnerability piece. I'm sure you've heard, but some of your viewers may not. Brene Brown is superb on this. Her TED Talk which was a
Brene Brown.
TEDx in Houston. That's been seen now by 60 million people.
Wow.
Talking about vulnerability and the importance of vulnerability, and she's written several books about that since that time. And I think that concept is important to understand that, so that as you did, and thank you for saying to them, thanks for being vulnerable, thanks for telling me that, which
Yeah.
shows you something, which is, I want people to think about leadership in a radically different way. I want
Mm-hmm.
them to
Mm-hmm.
act on that within a week, because if they don't do it within a week, they're not going to do it. Not because they're
Okay.
bad people, that's just
Yeah.
human nature. The
Yeah.
third is I want them to innovate. And innovation doesn't occur at the speed of genius, intelligence, creativity. It occurs at the speed of trust. Because if
Mm-hmm.
people don't trust each other in families and organizations and teams to fail, because no innovation is completely successful, there's always
Right.
elements of it that can be improved.
Yeah.
If the trust isn't there, then you're never going to be able to move forward. Or if you snap at someone, well, why did you say that? Why did you think that was a good idea? Instead of saying, wow, help me understand that better. I need to understand, because the way we're working isn't working. That's why burnout rates are as high as they are right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we need to change things. And uh, Samuel Beckett, the Irish playwright, was superb at this. He said, ever tried, ever failed. No matter.
Yeah.
Try again, fail better.
I
And you
love
can
it.
only fail better if you can show vulnerability and trust each other.
Yeah, wise words, Doc, and I'll definitely look up Renee Brown. Thank you for sharing that tidbit. Uh, Now, the third part of this, because I just want to get the viewers. So we talked a little bit about the Players Association. We talked a little bit about 9/11. I know you on the front of that. Tell us about the Ukraine, which is obviously is most recent in the last couple of years. How are you involved there, and how does that tie in again your mission on this earth?
Well, I'm in addition to being a sports medicine doc, I'm an emergency physician. So we're wired kind of different. I was a middle linebacker when I was in college, and they're certainly wired differently.
Yes, yes,
But most people, when you hear explosions, fires, gunfire, you run away.
mm,
That's normal. We don't do that. We run into the flames, into the
yeah,
fire, into the
yeah.
trouble, into, as the Marine commercial says, the sound of chaos. And our middle son Kevin, who's visiting us now, was a Marine infantry officer. So maybe there's
That's
something
awesome.
genetic in that. I don't
Yeah.
know,
Well,
but
thank you for the service.
sure. But it goes to what you were talking about earlier in terms of most people don't, or they aren't proactive, they're reactive.
Yeah.
And isn't it fascinating that there is a verb to react? I reacted to what he said. I
Hmm.
punched him in the mouth, or I insulted him, or I said, "How dare you?" Whatever. But there is, but we never use it. The verb proact. I proacted. I got ahead of this thing. I
Yeah.
thought about it ahead of time, and
Yeah. I like
and
that.
so that becomes very important. And when the war broke out in Ukraine, first of all, I'm uniquely talented as an emergency physician to
Yeah.
handle anything that comes through the door, no matter how bad or how good or how small or how big it might be. So I felt like I got to be there. And so I
Yeah.
talked to obviously to Maureen first. You good with this? I talked to Kevin, who's out of the Marines now, but still has an incredibly high security clearance, and so he could tell me, is it safe or not safe? And well, no
Yeah.
war is safe. You run to the sound of gunfire. But we took care of people that had literally been blown out of their beds, out of their homes, out of their houses, out of their
Wow.
schools, and had to grab whatever they could on their back, jump on a train, and go 900 miles. I mean, Ukraine is a very wide country,
Yeah.
and get off. They refused to go to Poland because they didn't want to be refugees. They wanted to
Right.
stay within Ukraine. And and you get off the train, and we were at some of those train stations, and hope that someone would be there to take care of him. So it was our privilege, our
Yeah.
honor, to be
Yeah.
there to take care of him and say,
Yeah.
"What do you need? We'll take care of you." It was incredible. I mean, the bravery, courage, tenacity that those people showed and continue to show as they go through that I don't have to tell you, Coach. It's always a privilege when someone says, "Could you help me?"
Absolutely. Well, Doc, again, I love, there's a lot of things I've taken from you already, but I like there's the little saying you hear, why not me? And my son and I just had a conversation the other day. Yeah, why not me? Why am I not the one being proactive? Why not am I the person? Because I use this example, I know you've heard it probably many times, is the person with no feet will never complain, right? Because they appreciate everything. You hear people all the time not appreciating things, and I know you hear it all the time. And you live in Wyoming, which is beautiful, so at least you got a little bit of good America there, right?
Yeah,
But the person with no shoes will never look at life the same way as someone with no feet. They can't walk, they can't
sure.
live. And most people always wait till something bad happens, then they care, then they become advocates, then they appreciate life, and sometimes it's too late. And I'm writing a third book, which I would love for you to read when I'll send you a
Sure,
copy,
love that.
and it's called Living Your Legacy. And I just unfortunately had to go to a friend's celebration of life funeral type thing a couple weeks ago. Beautiful, as good as I've ever seen. But I keep saying to people, why do you want to wait till you get somewhere and not appreciate now? If you love your kids, tell them. If you love someone, tell them. If you appreciate life, tell them. Create memories. There's only so much money can do. And if you're okay, then make the best of those moments. And I love you took the time. You left Wyoming. You left your wife. You left those things to go make a difference again. And I commend you for that. And that's inspiring to me. And this is why I'm using whatever platform I can to wake people up, to complain less. And that's why I use my no feet, no shoes. Like, stop,
Yeah,
people. Stop. Like, wisdom is saying, I'm healthy, I get to travel, I can walk to the plane. So what am I going to do with that? And that's how I do with people that I coach, people that I work with. What are you going to do with your gift? And they go, what do you mean? I go, what are you doing with your life? Well, I do this, not your career.
right.
What are you doing with your life? Because like you said, Doc, your stage, your leadership starts with you. You're fortunate to have a wife, you have some kids, and then it continues to grow outward. And that's why your family supported you to go make a difference, because they know your heart. So thank you. That's great.
Well, yeah, of course, and I can't wait to read the book. I mean, just think about, and we haven't talked about this before, just so your viewers are clear. I mean, every word of that title is perfect. Living.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Jonathan Swift said, "May you live all the days of your life."
Yes.
It's a really
Yes.
powerful thing.
Yeah.
Live every day, not just
Yep.
breathe and respirate, and in comes the oxygen, out goes the CO2.
Yeah.
Your, I put when I am a consultant, I don't do a lot of consulting, but when I go on site, I always write up on the board, these words: do the best you can. And then I
Hmm.
ask the audience, read that for me, one person at a time. Someone will go, do the best you can. Someone will say, do the best you can. Do
Yeah.
the best you can. But almost no one says, do the best you can. your life,
Yeah.
not somebody else's. Don't compare yourself, but
Hmm.
did you do your best? And then legacy, I mean, honestly, every that's why I say at the end of the day, three good things. Think about three good things that happened that day, because all of us, whether we're coaching sports, we're teaching, we're all teaching in life, ourselves and others through our examples. So every day we leave a legacy, but
Yeah.
it's really a mistake not to think at the end of the day and at the beginning of the day. At the beginning of the day, what will my legacy be? So I'm thinking
Yes.
about it ahead of time. And at
Yes.
the end of the day, what did I leave today? When I leave a
Yep.
meeting, what did I leave in there?
Yes, sir.
Before I go in the meeting, what do I want people to think? And it's not, oh man, isn't he smart? Obviously, good looking. Nope, that ain't going to happen with me. But I'd hope that they'd say, Doc was really kind. Doc really
Yes.
made me think about something.
Yeah.
He was really generous.
Yep.
So I can't wait to read your book, and I'm happy to provide a marketing quote for it as well.
Thank you, Doc. I appreciate that, and I definitely look forward to getting you that. I should have it wrapped up by the end of summer. My
Fantastic.
first two, they're short little reads. The first one was called "Live Now." The premise of that was to build the foundation. What are you building your foundation
Sure.
on, right? Which is what I share, and I am happily able to say you're doing that. Your family is first, right? Your faith, your health, your family. And the second one was called "Living Now," putting into action. Get out there and get it
Yeah.
done. And that's why this third one to me really resonated, Doc, because I am happy to say I have two beautiful kids. One's expecting, one already popped out, one a year old.
Congratulations on both.
Thank you so much. I have another little daughter that's 15 through another marriage so I'm like, okay, I'm doing these things and I want to live. I don't want them to sit there and talk in past tense. My dad used to do these things. And as long as God gives me breath, I want them to go, no, there's the guy. And now let's go into our friend group. So thank you for that. Um,
Sure.
One more, and then you get a chance to ask me a question. One of the things I do with all my friend and guests is you get to ask me a question. And as all our viewers and all our listeners, everybody, this is our first 4-1, so this is organic, and I love that. It's just having great conversation. But before you get to ask me one more for you, Doc. What keeps you going now? Because I assume, money wise, you're good. Overall, you're in a good position. You still got plenty of beautiful energy, but you've been on tour not too recent with your book. What is that drive for you that keeps you wanting to do more to bless people?
Oh, it's easy. Next.
Hmm.
Next. People say, "What's
Next.
the biggest challenge you faced?" Next, whatever the next challenge is, and you just never know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
being ready for whatever it might be, so that you're able to express. I was talking to somebody that I was coaching and not formally coaching, like that. I have great respect for that, but they had asked me to sort of help coach and mentor them, and I said, "Great," and so I said, "How you doing? How are you?" Not what have you been doing, but how are you? And it bled into a certain challenge that she had had, and she had said it was difficult, and I knew it was difficult. That's
Yeah.
why I asked her about it, and she said, "Well, I had to abandon my core values," and I put my hand up and I said, "Then they weren't core values. If you
Ooh.
abandon your core values, then they weren't really core values,
Yeah.
because core values come through when not when the going is good, but when the going is rough. And it
Absolutely.
will get rough in
Yeah.
life. That's just the nature of life.
Yeah.
To me, it's next. It's whatever the
Yeah.
next challenge is, whatever I'm called upon to and blessed with to be able to say, hey, you know what? Let's call Doc. I think he could help us on this. It's the
Absolutely.
greatest blessing you could ever have.
I love that, Doc. It's a beautiful answer, and it's who you are, a testament to your life's work. And again, like you said, you're living your legacy every day. Even this interview and what I know my listeners are going to be really enjoying something that you get to take away from. So I love that, Doc. Well, good. Well, now as we wrap up, and time flies when you're having a good time with somebody. What is your question for me? Whatever you think it might be, if there's something that comes natural, or yeah.
Sure. You probably already know what it is, and I think I know the answer, but it's important to ask and important to answer, which is, Coach, your deep joy?
Well, thank you for asking that. My deep joy is first, I'm going to state a gratitude response because I have such a heart of gratitude that I feel it is a disservice to this world if I don't share my flow with people. So positive attraction, and I couldn't believe the name was available on the podcast world, and it was such a because it's not that things aren't good, Doc. It's in spite of them not being good that we're going to go, and positive attraction will cause positive reaction. So my internal why is every time, like you said, in the morning I get up, I want to make a difference that people can walk away from me organically going, you know what? I'm going to do better today. I'm going to enjoy life better. It's not that bad. So I know it's not corny, but as corny as it might sound to some, it drives me to want to make my legacy, especially alive, make a statement.
That's beautiful, Coach. And I would say, first of all, it's not corny at all. And for someone who does say that, by definition, they're a cynic. And as Oscar Wilde said, the definition of a cynic is someone who knows the cost of everything but the value of nothing. So,
Mm.
that's a beautiful statement, and I've really enjoyed having the chance to share and learn from you. I look forward to reading your book.
Thank you, Doc. And I look forward to fully engaging. You know, you do a lot of good work, and I'll speak to you a couple minutes after our recording here. Then the listeners have to tune in for another future edition of the Doc here with some great stuff that you've shared. But I do want to formally thank you again with all the guests that are listening and watching and people to come. Thank you for your time. Thank you for taking that moment to give back, to be proactive about your blessings in the medical field, in your attitude, and you really living that. So uh, keep doing it, like you said. Whatever next is, you will be ready, Doc. You're the guy I want in the room in many situations. God forbid I ever need any of that. So thank you for your time today. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. And everybody, thank you for tuning in. And Doc, any final words?
Oh, thank you. Just that it's been an honor to be on with you, and I look forward to future conversations.
Same here. Thank you, everybody, for another edition of Positive Traction with Coach Henry. Thank you, Doc. Till next time, God bless.
That was fun.